The man just exhaled lightly onto the window. A string of mysterious symbols appeared. Instantly, he realized immediately that the storm outside the plane wasn't natural. Something was using dark magic to control it all. So he quickly pulled a staple from a magazine and dropped it into a glass of water. The staple slowly spun in the water, and Paul locked onto the direction. The next second, he walked straight up to a young girl. But the problem wasn't the girl herself. It was the storm gem she carried on her right side. At that moment, the gem activated at full power. The storm struck hard, and the plane began shaking violently. Passengers throughout the cabin were panicking, but Paul remained completely calm. He pulled out some magic powder and sprinkled it over the gem, then used tweezers to lift the gem away. The next second, the sky outside cleared up. Instantly, the plane was out of danger, but Paul acted as if nothing had happened. He was already chatting with a flight attendant. The reason he was so relaxed was that he was an 800-year-old sorcerer. 800 years ago, humans waged a war against an evil witch, and Paul had led the charge. But when they stormed the witch's lair, his men were all turned into monsters. Paul quickly cast a spell on his sword, and it killed every single one of them. But when he finally confronted the witch herself, he was no match for her. She nearly dragged him into the abyss. At the very last second, Paul ignited holy oil on the ground. Fire engulfed the entire floor. Instantly, in the chaos, he struck the witch. But just before she died, she left a curse behind. She made Paul unable to die and doomed him to eternal loneliness. From that day forward, Paul became a sorcerer who would never age. For 800 years, the only companion by his side was his butler, and today was the day the old butler retired. Before leaving, Paul gave him his fountain pen as a keepsake, but Paul had no idea that gift would end up costing the old man his life, because the very next day, Paul received the news that his butler had passed away. To find out what happened, Paul brought his new butler and went to the old man's home. But no matter how hard they searched, nothing in the house seemed out of place. Just as they were about to leave, Paul suddenly noticed something on the floor. 3 dead flies. Something felt off, because every single window had been shut the entire time. How had the flies gotten inside? And why exactly 3 of them? So Paul scattered magic powder across the floor. The next second, a magic circle appeared on the ground, and the entire room began shaking. They realized it was an illusion magic circle, which meant the old butler was most likely killed by a witch, and the fountain pen Paul had given him had already been taken by the killer. It was clear that all of this was aimed at Paul. Right then, Paul made up his mind. He was determined to find out who was really behind it all.